Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles the Band. And welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show. We cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, when we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a pretty interesting show for you guys. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, as you guys are fully aware, Skip Bayless has made some splashes over the last, 2 or 3 weeks now, after we started hearing some of the people that he was going to be having to join him on Undisputed. I think the first one we heard was Lil Wayne. I don't think that really moved the needle much. I was a bit confused, to be quite honest with you, of them looking to bring on Lil Wayne. And then we heard the big one, which was that Shannon Sharpe was going to be replaced by Richard Sherman. Now, if you guys know anything about Richard Sherman, him and Skip Bayless had an infamous blow up on television 10 plus years ago when Skip Bayless was working, around 10 years ago, when Skip Bayless was still working at ESPN on ESPN First Take. They had an exchange. It was explosive. Skip said his part. Richard Sherman said his part. And none of them minced words. But Richard Sherman, some would say, or maybe most would say, arguably got the better of Skip Bayless during that segment. So a lot of us were like, wow, okay, they're getting him. And according to the news that we heard at the time, he is slated to be on Undisputed 50 to 100 times per year. Now, I don't know exactly how that's going to look, but that's what we heard. And then after that, we heard that they were going to be getting Rachel Nichols to now be the moderator of Undisputed. That brought a lot of attention. We even did a live about it, and a lot of people reacted to it. And I think overall, it got a positive reception, right? So we heard that. And then, of course, there's some other rumblings of him possibly bringing on Michael Irving. Another person said that, they may bring on Keyshawn Johnson. So things are still floating out there. So what happened? Yesterday, I came across a segment from Marcellus Wiley's show. And he was discussing some of the moves that Skip Bayless made. And then he discussed some comments that were made by one of Skip Bayless's, dare I say, one of his colleagues that, Skip Bayless, one of these people are not willing to, they didn't have some positive things to say about Skip Bayless. And then this morning I was actually going to cover that particular show. And then I came across another article from Yahoo Sports. And this article was essentially highlighting the fact that Skip Bayless had an opportunity to work with, who of all people? Nick Wright. And according to what this Yahoo News article had to say, that's not the only article, another article that covered it, marca.com. But according to this article, it says that Skip Bayless reportedly refused to consider, think about this, to consider working with Nick Wright. But before we get into these articles, this video is brought to you by sponsor Aura, who's also the official sponsor of the T-Wolves. So let me get into this article here. It starts off with the headline: Skip Bayless reportedly refused to consider KC native Nick Wright for Undisputed role. The article then continues on. When Shannon Sharpe left Fox Sports Undisputed in June, attention turned to who might fill the chair across from Skip Bayless on the sports talk show. One name mentioned at the time was Nick Wright, the Kansas City native, who previously worked at KCSP 610 AM, the host of First Things First on FS1. However, the New York Post reported that when Undisputed returns on August 28th, Bayless will be joined by a rotation of co-hosts, including ex-NFL defensive back Richard Sherman, rapper Lil Wayne, and former ESPN reporter Rachel Nichols. Why didn't Wright get a shot to replace Sharpe? Front Office Sports' Michael McCarthy, quoting an unnamed source, said Bayless refused to consider Nick Wright. Skip doesn't want to work with Nick. That source told McCarthy. Skip doesn't want to work with anybody who will make him look bad, and Nick would disembowel him on air. Awful announcings. Brandon Contest reports Wright got on Bayless' bad side after a guest appearance 6 years ago. Wright made one appearance on Undisputed in 2017, roasted Bayless for his LeBron hot takes, and was never invited on the show again, Contest wrote. This story sounds very familiar to the time Bomani Jones went head-to-head with Bayless on First Take and never received another invite. So, you heard what the article had to say, that he was afraid that Nick Wright would roast him. I'm not buying any of that. I'm not buying any of that because I can't think of anybody that Nick Wright roasts. That's number one. Number two, I personally believe that Skip Bayless is not afraid of arguing with Nick Wright. Like, let's stop. Skip Bayless argued across Stephen A. Smith for how many years? He argued across Chris Broussard. He argued across Rob Parker. He argued across Jalen Rose. He's argued across a litany of well-known voices in sports media. But now when it gets to Nick Wright, all of a sudden he's afraid to argue. Because for what reason exactly? I think the reason Skip Bayless did not, or rather refused to work with Nick Wright is because maybe Skip said to himself, there's just no way I can sit down and listen to Nick Wright say all of his nonsense about LeBron James on my show. What am I talking about? As you guys know, the single show that really put Nick Wright on the map was then when he came on Undisputed. I think it was in 2017 or so. He came on the show. It was him, Chris Carter, Shannon Sharp, and Skip Bayless. During that segment, let me just say it for you guys again. That was the first time I ever heard any person on television, anybody, anywhere, say that after LeBron won his championship in 2016, he surpassed Michael Jordan. Nick Wright was the first person I have ever heard say something like that. If you go search Nick Wright on YouTube, that will be his most viewed video. It has millions of views. And I think probably Skip thought that take was just so outlandish that he could not fathom the idea of arguing with Nick Wright on a daily basis, listening to his absolutely ludicrous takes. Now, am I saying that Skip Bayless is not a hater of LeBron James? He absolutely is. He does it all the time. He hates on LeBron James for when he just makes up stuff to hate on LeBron. Why LeBron sat this way? He was drinking this wine. What does that mean? LeBron posted this. LeBron didn't post this. What does that mean? So Skip Bayless is excessive himself. But I think that he couldn't stomach. I don't think Skip Bayless could stomach the things that Nick Wright would say. I wouldn't be able to listen to somebody tell me that in 2016, LeBron, I just couldn't listen to somebody because I know they're trolling me. And trolls can be they can be annoyances. So I don't think it has anything to do with, he would wipe the floor. I don't believe so. Nick Wright does not know more football than Skip Bayless at all, number one. Number two, does he know more basketball than Skip? No. Nick Wright always has this kind of obscure, obtuse angle of which he says things. And I think the majority of the time he says things to infuriate people, and then people react to him. Because Nick knew, unless you're a flagrant idiot, Nick Wright knew that if he said that, it was going to upset a whole bunch of people, and then by him upsetting people, he now created attention, and therefore people are listening. That's his shtick. That's what he does. That's his mode of operation. So I just think Skip just couldn't tolerate working with Nick Wright on television every single day. As a matter of fact, we produce shows where we've covered some explosive back and forth between Nick Wright and Chris Broussard, and I have asked the question, Chris, how in the hell do you do it? I have publicly asked this question, so I don't think it has anything to do with him being afraid of Nick Wright. I think he just didn't want to be able to deal with Nick Wright every single day. These are my thoughts. So what I want to know from you guys is, what do you think about what this article had to say? Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comments, and we catch you on the next show.